Paul tells Titus, remind all to be subject to rulers and authorities. And this is the Catholic teaching, we're supposed to be respectful to the legitimate civil authorities, and we're very grateful to those who serve in public office for serving the people, and that's all great. Except when you have governments that are awful. And we're coming out of just a century of tremendous Christian persecution, especially through the atheistic communist regimes. We don't teach our young people this as much. Many Catholics are oblivious, but the atheistic communism regimes of the last century, there's untold bloodshed of Christians and Catholics and Orthodox Christians. And so again, I think a lot of us who study a bit of history and are aware of what we've just come out of, we're a little kind of, I don't know what, jaded or maybe you'd use the word anxious about a government going weird. And also when you look at history, you can have a country that's well governed and everyone's happy and people are free, which people are supposed to be free, eh? Some countries, there's no concept of people being free, and even the people don't feel that they should be free. There are some countries, if you say something openly against the government, you disappear. You can't do that. You don't dare, And so again, we're supposed to be free. But again, in the past, there's just been a tremendous amount of persecution of Christians, of Catholics, or just good-willed people. And even now, do you know Christian persecution is on the rise? When you look at the numbers, there are a lot of Christians, Catholics, persecuted, martyred. And I think part of, our kind of mindset as Christians and Catholics is, we know about turning the other cheek, forgive and forget. And so, again, sometimes, I guess there are voices today saying, hey, this is awful. Yes, we forgive and forget. Yes, we turn the other cheek. But we have to sound the alarm when so many Christians and Catholics are being killed. And again, so many governments are making life difficult for Christians. Now again, there are many countries in the world where the leadership is respectful of religion and letting people kind of live their faith and all of that. And so but the point I was going to make, so you look at these countries in the past, countries where the people were free, things were governed well, they were normal, and then it's almost like overnight they went full-blown totalitarianism, dictatorship. And you think of, again, some of the countries that got taken over by atheistic communism, that was a failed experiment. Oh, what an awful failed experiment, these atheistic communist regimes. And I'll tell you something, you talk to the people from these countries and ask them, were you happy under atheistic communism? They'll say, no way, no freedom. No freedom. I remember I was in a communist country, took a taxi somewhere, and I asked the cab driver, beautiful country, I asked him, I said, are the people, seems like a nice country, are the people happy? Without hesitation, no. I said, well, why not? There's no freedom in this country. No freedom. And so, again, it's one of those things, we need to, again, hear what St. Paul is telling us, remind all to be subject to rulers and authorities. Yes, absolutely. But I'll tell you something, the older I get, the more I see we as Catholics, we need to be involved in our civil world. We need to vote. We need to be aware of the issues. Young people who feel called to serving in public office as Catholics, go for it. Do some good. Protect the rights of the people. And again, at every level, we've seen some of our school boards in the Catholic world hijacked by people who are completely bonkers, taking over what's, like some of the ideologies being taught in the classrooms these days, it's horrific, And so again, as Catholics, We're not of this world, It's good to have our hearts in heaven and, things in the sky and all that. But again, the older I get, the more I see, Catholics, please be awake, be aware. Don't get swept away with the ideologies or the nonsense of the world. Again, you take atheistic communism, there was a time almost everyone in the academic world was convinced that communism was the answer to all the world's problems. And if you said otherwise, you were seen as a superstitious, uneducated peasant. You were clued out. Well, look at what atheistic communism has done. And even now, there's ideologies now being taught in our universities, just taken for granted. Universities, Hollywood, marketing industry, all that. It's bonkers, completely nuts. And if you say otherwise, again, you're treated like I don't know what, like you're coming from the Stone Age, And so, again, and to me, I consider myself. Who here has ever had a smoke detector where every time you make toast, the stupid thing goes off? It's too sensitive, I've had a smoke detector. Actually, I have a smoke detector like that. But anyways, that's not the point. So I don't think it's good for Christians, for Catholics, to kind of get freaked out over every little thing and constantly be sounding the alarm. But the flip side is, if you have a smoke detector that doesn't go off, if your newspaper catches fire and there's smoke well, then your smoke detector is useless. And I believe every one of us, we're kind of like meant to be a smoke detector. We don't need to go off every little thing, but when things get weird in our world, in our country, and in politics, we need to be able to raise our voices and say, I don't think so. I don't think so. That's wrong. And I'm not afraid to say it as a citizen, as a Catholic, as a human being, And so again, you see the smoke detector analogy. If people of goodwill don't raise their voices when things get weird, we're lost. And again, you can see countries, they were well governed, everyone was happy, there was freedom, and almost overnight they just went into totalitarian dictatorship. And again, it's awful. So we need to be on guard. We need to be awake. We need to be vigilant for the good of our people, for the good of our children, and for the good of our grandchildren.